Why do you want to be executed?
I have to be. Because I will kill again.
Do you have any comprehension of the suffering that you've brought the families of the people that you killed?
I don't have any remorse.
These are some of the most dangerous killers who ever lived. Get ready as we delve into the darkest corners of the human psyche. In this video of disturbing interviews with serial killers, we explore the twisted minds of some of the most notorious murderers in history. Brace yourself for a journey into the depths of depravity as we uncover the shocking confessions and disturbing revelations from these cold-blooded killers. Jeffrey Dahmer.
And that's why you killed them?
Right. Not because I was angry with them, not because I hated them, but because I wanted to keep them with me.
First, we will delve into the twisted mind of one of the most infamous murderers in history, Jeffrey Dahmer, also known as the Milwaukee Cannibal. As the interview begins, we are immediately struck by Dahmer's intelligence and articulation. Dahmer starts by revealing the obsessive desires and thoughts that consumed him. He explains that he was driven by an insatiable need to control and possess his victims permanently. In an attempt to understand his actions, Dahmer also admits that he still feels the old compulsions and urges.
Do you still feel those same urges? Do you still feel that compulsion, that obsession?
I wish I could say that it just left completely, but no, there are times when I still do have the old compulsions.
It is clear that Dahmer's disturbing behavior began long before his killing spree. He had a history of arrests for indecent exposure, disorderly conduct, and even fondling a 13-year-old boy.
It's a process. It doesn't happen overnight. When you depersonalize another person and view them as just an object for pleasure instead of a living, breathing human being.
In 1978, at the age of 18, Dahmer committed his first murder. His victim was Stephen Hicks, a hitchhiker whom Dahmer lured to his parents' home under the guise of offering him a place to stay. Dahmer's method of murder would become a chilling pattern. He would lure his victims, often young men, to his apartment or hotel room, promising them money or a place to stay. Once there, he would drug them, rendering them helpless and vulnerable to his sadistic desires.
When you killed these men, afterwards, were you repulsed? Were you upset?
No, at the time, it was almost addictive. It was almost a surge of energy.
After killing his victims, Dahmer would engage in acts of necrophilia. He would violate their lifeless bodies, indulging in his darkest fantasies. But Dahmer's depravity didn't end there. Dahmer admits to photographing his victims, capturing their appearance and physical beauty.
It was my way of remembering their appearance, their physical beauty. I also wanted to keep if I couldn't keep them there with me whole, at least I felt that I could keep their skeletons.
It wasn't until July 22nd, 1991, that Dahmer's reign of terror would end. One of his intended victims, Tracy Edwards, managed to escape from Dahmer's clutches. Edwards flagged down 2 police officers, leading them to Dahmer's apartment. What they discovered inside was a house of horrors. Dahmer was arrested and charged with multiple counts of murder. He was convicted of 15 of the 16 homicides he committed in Wisconsin and sentenced to life imprisonment. The judge handed down a staggering total of 957 years in prison. But Dahmer's story doesn't end there. In November 1994, just 2 years into his sentence, he met a gruesome fate. He was beaten to death by a fellow inmate, Christopher Scarver, in the Columbia Correctional Institution. Richard Ramirez.
Admit to being evil, Richard?
We are all evil in some form or another, are we not?
I'm asking you the questions, my friend.
Yes, I am evil. Not 100%, but I am evil.
Born on February 29th, 1960, Richard Ramirez's childhood was marred by a series of disturbing events that would shape his dark path. Growing up in a poverty-stricken neighborhood, Ramirez was exposed to a harsh reality from an early age.
A serial killer comes about by circumstances and like a recipe: poverty, drugs, child abuse. These things, you know, contribute to a person. To a person's frustration and anger.
Ramirez's criminal tendencies began to manifest during his teenage years. He started stealing and engaging in petty crimes, giving a glimpse into the darkness that lay within him. As Richard Ramirez's dark desires consumed him, he embarked on a reign of terror that would grip Los Angeles in fear. From June 1984 to August 1985, Ramirez unleashed a series of sadistic and brutal killings that shocked even the most seasoned detectives. Strangulation, beating, and sexual assault were just a few of the sadistic acts Ramirez committed. Ramirez's motive for killing was simply to kill. He was a predator driven by a dark and insatiable urge to inflict pain and death due to his frustration.
To a person's frustration and anger, and at some point in life, he explodes.
Richard Ramirez's reign of terror eventually came to an end when he was captured by a group of residents who recognized him and handed him over to the police. What followed was one of America's most notorious courtroom dramas. As the trial unfolded, shocking details emerged about Ramirez's fascination with Satanism. Ramirez, however, claimed the world had been fed lies about him.
What do you want the world to know about you?
The world has been fed many lies about me. I have read very few truths.
Despite his conviction, Ramirez showed no concern for his own fate. He made it clear that he did not care about himself or the consequences of his actions.
Why on earth would you have hurt those people? Why did you kill those people?
No comments. No comments. I cannot answer that at this time.
At some point, he even tried to compare his act to that of the government. In the end, Ramirez was sentenced to death in California's gas chamber, and he died while still on death row. Aileen Wuornos.
All they were was shot and left. If it was a horrendous crime, why didn't I shoot them between the eyes, cut their penis off, stick it in their mouth, do all kinds of gross stuff? All they were was shot and left.
Next, we bring you face to face with Aileen Wuornos, one of the most fearsome female serial killers in history. From a young age, Wuornos experienced a troubled upbringing, marked by abuse and abandonment that would shape her into the person she would become.
I hate those male... God. I hate those male cops. Real bad, because they're dirtballs. The cops, the judges, the lawyers, they're all male.
By the time Aileen reached her teenage years, she had become a rebellious and troubled young woman. She ran away from foster homes, seeking solace in the streets. It was during this time that she turned to prostitution as a means of survival. As Aileen Wuornos descended further into the depths of her troubled psyche, the dark woods of Florida's highways became the setting for her chilling killing spree. The unsuspecting men who crossed her path would soon become victims of her twisted rage. It was during this killing spree that Aileen met Tyria Moore, a woman who would become her lover and partner in crime. It was Tyria who would ultimately betray her to the police, eliciting a confession that would unravel the horrifying truth. In the end, Aileen Wuornos was arrested and tried.
Maybe you were just born bad.
Boy, I don't know about you. I'm telling you, man. No, I wasn't born bad. You guys got it. See, I'm trying to tell you, man, they lied. They lied so bad to you all.
She pleaded no contest to the murder charges, accepting her fate. She was sentenced to death, choosing death by lethal injection over life in prison. Her last interview was even more disturbing, as she claimed the police just wanted to paint her as a serial killer. She also talked about how the government tortured her with sonic sounds in her head. Just before the interview ended, Aileen blamed the government and society for what had happened to her.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I lost my fucking life because of it. Couldn't even get a fair trial. Couldn't even get a fair investigation or nothing. Couldn't even have my appeals right. You sabotaged my ass, society, and the cops, and the system. A raped woman got executed.
Wesley Allen Dodd.
Why do you want to be executed?
I have to be. Because I will kill again.
Wesley Allen Dodd was born on July 3, 1961, in Toppenish, Washington. At first glance, his childhood seemed ordinary, but behind closed doors, a different reality unfolded. Dodd claimed that he was never abused or neglected as a child, but his diary, written during his imprisonment, revealed a different story. In those pages, he detailed the emotional and physical abuse he suffered at the hands of his father. By the age of 9, he discovered a disturbing truth about himself. He was sexually attracted to other boys. This realization would set the stage for the horrifying acts that would later define his life. Dodd's criminal history began when he was just 13 years old.
No, I would do it again. I've been molesting kids nonstop since I was 13 years old, over half my life. anything happened, I can guarantee I'd do it again, and sooner or later I would kill another child.
In a series of chilling acts, Dodd sexually assaulted and murdered 2 brothers, Cole and William Neer. The depths of his depravity knew no bounds, as he later abducted and killed 4-year-old Lee Iserly. These innocent lives were brutally taken, leaving a community in shock and mourning. Dodd's crimes were not impulsive acts of violence. They were meticulously planned and executed, as revealed in his diary, where he documented his crimes and even planned future abductions. Dodd claimed to have liked killing.
I've done it before, and at the time I liked it.
But Dodd's reign of terror would soon come to an end. He was arrested after a failed attempt to abduct another child from a movie theater restroom. He was found guilty of the murder charges against him and was sentenced to death. However, the story doesn't end there. Dodd chose to be executed by hanging, the very same method he used to end the life of Lee Iserly. Despite his conviction, Dodd in an interview said if he was ever free, he still had someone he'd like to kill.
I'm not going to say who, but there is somebody out there. There's a man out there.
There's a man.
Yeah.
Someone related to the case that got you imprisoned in the first place?
Not directly, no.
The interviewer decided to probe further.
But it's something that you know that you're going to do, or you plan to do, you want to do.
Yeah.
Dodd also talked about why his execution would be a good thing. When asked how he lived with himself after killing 3 innocent boys, Dood said he felt guilty but tried not to think about it. Finally, Dodd expressed his full desire to die because it meant relief for him and was the only way to guarantee he wouldn't hurt anyone. Eventually, Dodd was executed by hanging on January 5th, 1993. Ted Bundy.
I don't want to die. I'm not going to kid you. Okay, kid you not. I deserve certainly the most extreme punishment society has, and I think society deserves to be protected from me.
Those are the words of Theodore Bundy, one of the most prolific serial killers in America's history. Bundy's childhood home was filled with love and stability. His grandparents, Samuel and Eleanor Cowell, played an active role in his upbringing, providing additional support and guidance. As Bundy entered his teenage years, he began to show signs of rebellion and a growing fascination with violence. In his interview, Bundy emphasizes the significant influence of violent pornography on individuals like him. He believes that exposure to explicit and graphic material played a pivotal role in the development of his violent tendencies.
We're talking about an influence that is the influence of violent types of media and violent pornography, which was an indispensable link in the chain of behavior, the chain of events that led to the behaviors, to the assaults, to the murders, and what happened.
Over time, Bundy would go on to commit over 30 murders, yet he claimed he was innocent when he was newly apprehended.
Salt Lake, when you were extradited, you issued a statement saying you feel that everything will turn out all right, that you are innocent. Do you still feel that?
Yeah, more than ever.
He even stated that he was angry at being locked up for a crime he didn't commit.
Sure, I get angry. I get very, very angry and indignant. I don't like being locked up for something I didn't do, and I don't like my liberty taken away, and I don't like being treated like an animal, and I don't like people walking around and ogling me like I'm some sort of weirdo, because I'm not.
However, he eventually admitted to the murder, and right before he was executed, Bundy in his last interview said while he deserved to die, it didn't change what had happened.
Because there is no way in the world that killing me is going to restore those beautiful children to their parents and correct and soothe the pain.
Ted Bundy was eventually executed in the Rayford electric chair on January 28, 1989. His last words were, "I'd like you to give my love to my family and friends." Carroll Edward Cole.
Why not fight for your life? I just don't care to.
Carroll Edward Cole was born in Sioux City, Iowa on May 9, 1938. From the very beginning, his life was marred by turmoil and emotional abuse. His mother, a deeply troubled woman, inflicted unimaginable pain on young Carroll. At the tender age of 8, Carroll Cole drowned a classmate, a chilling act that sent shockwaves through the community. As Carroll grew older, his violent tendencies escalated. Carroll's violent urges landed him in various mental hospitals, where he was diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder. But despite this diagnosis, he was released back into society, a decision that would have devastating consequences. The true extent of Carroll's depravity was revealed when he attempted to strangle an 11-year-old girl, leaving her traumatized and scarred for life. This heinous act resulted in a 5-year prison sentence, but it was a punishment that did little to alleviate Carroll's guilt. After his release from prison, Carroll relocated to Nevada, where he continued his reign of terror. He targeted women, often choosing those he believed to be unfaithful. Carroll's reign of terror came to an end when he was convicted and sentenced to life in prison in Texas. But justice wasn't finished with him yet. In 1984, he was extradited to Nevada, where he faced trial for the strangulation deaths of 2 women. The evidence against him was overwhelming, and he was sentenced to death. In an exclusive television interview, he discussed the suffering he had inflicted upon his victims, expressing a twisted sense of remorse. He singled out an 11-year-old girl, a victim from 1967, as the source of his deepest guilt.
Are you sorry? For the victim? Yes. Yes.
Anyone in particular?
Especially the one that was the 11-year-old girl way back in 1967.
The interview took a chilling turn when Carroll was asked about the possibility of pain during his impending execution, since it was the first time the state was using the lethal injection method.
If I said if I wasn't concerned about that, I'd be lying. Because everybody wants to go the, easiest, most comfortable way.
The ultimate question of whether Carroll believed he deserved to die hung in the air. Unable to answer directly, he acknowledged the gravity of his crimes and the magnitude of the ultimate punishment. Considering what he had done, he believed he deserved the fate that awaited him.
Do you deserve to die?
I can't answer that question.
Well, it's the ultimate question. It is the question.
For what I did, yes, I think I deserve to die.
On December 6, 1985, Carroll's execution was carried out by lethal injection, a method that would bring an end to his reign of terror. Gary Ray Bowles.
Sad to say, but it's not hard to kill somebody. You can kill somebody pretty easy if you have the mindset for it.
It was the year 1994 when Gary Ray Bowles embarked on a chilling killing spree that would send shockwaves through the nation. It all started in the vibrant city of Daytona Beach, Florida, where Bowles met his first victim, John Roberts, at a local bar who offered him a place to stay. Little did Roberts know that this chance encounter would lead to his untimely demise. According to Bowles, an image showing on Roberts' TV triggered him into murdering the other man.
That video triggered a memory that I had blocked out of me being a little kid. The switch went on and that was it. And I just snapped.
7 weeks after the chilling murder of John Roberts, Gary Ray Bowles continued his reign of terror, leaving a trail of devastation in his wake.
I was on a real adrenaline high. From there on, it was just downhill rage.
This time, his sinister path led him to Savannah, Georgia, where he claimed his second victim, Milton Bradley, a World War II veteran. From there, Bowles would go on to murder 6 other men, earning him the nickname I-95 Killer, since most of his victims lived close to the Interstate 95 highway. When asked how he felt after killing his victims, Bowles had this to say.
I don't know, I felt all right, There's not really a way to describe it, it's just, I guess, relief.
As the investigation intensified, the true extent of Bowles's depravity began to unravel. His modus operandi became clear, prostituting himself to his victims before unleashing his violent rage upon them. He would beat and strangle his victims, stealing their credit cards as a final act of dominance. For a long time, he managed to elude the authorities and was even added to the FBI's list of the country's 10 most wanted fugitives for his 4 known victims. He was finally arrested on November 22, 1994, and was found guilty of 3 counts of murder. Bowles was sentenced to death, and on August 22, 2019, he was executed by lethal injection at Florida State Prison in Rayford. Edmund Kemper.
I walked up to her bed. She's laying there reading a paperback, as many thousands of nights before. And she said, "Oh, I suppose you're going to want to sit up all night and talk now." Shit. I looked at her, I said, "No." I said, "Good night." And I knew I was going to kill her.
Edmund Kemper, also known as the co-ed killer, had a troubled childhood that laid the foundation for his disturbing path. Born on December 18, 1948 in Burbank, California, Kemper's early years were marked by a tumultuous family life. His mother, Clarnell Kemper, was an alcoholic and possibly suffered from borderline personality disorder, which created a toxic environment for young Edmund. The troubled relationship between Kemper and his mother further fueled his violent tendencies.
My mother was a sick, angry, hungry, and very sad woman. I hated her.
At the age of 15, Kemper's disturbed psyche took a sinister turn. On August 27, 1964, he murdered his grandparents, Maud and Edmund Kemper Sr., in their home. Kemper's motive for the killings remains unclear, but it is believed that his troubled relationship with his grandmother played a significant role. He went to a mental institution after being diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia, but was released 5 years later. With his newfound freedom, Kemper embarked on a murder spree that spanned over 20 years. His preferred victims were young female hitchhikers and college co-eds, whom he would pick up and lure into his vehicle with his seemingly harmless demeanor. His choice of victims was also heavily influenced by his hatred for his mother.
You were involved in the campus because your mother worked there?
Yes. I was also involved in killing co-eds because my mother was associated with college work, college co-eds, women, and had a very strong and violently outspoken position on men.
Once in his control, Kemper's true sadistic nature would emerge. He would rape, torture, and ultimately murder his victims, fulfilling his twisted fantasies. Kemper's ability to appear normal and non-threatening allowed him to gain the trust of his victims, making his crimes all the more horrifying.
I lived as an ordinary person most of my life, even though I was living a parallel and increasingly sick life, other life. One victim let me back in the car. I locked myself out. She opened the door for me.
During this reign of terror, Kemper would often dispose of the bodies in remote locations, burying some of the remains in his mother's garden and keeping some as souvenirs. It was only when Kemper reached a breaking point that he decided to turn himself in. Following a heated argument, Kemper decapitated his mother, finally killing her. After murdering his own mother, he felt that the killing had to stop. He was eventually tried, and having been found guilty of the charges against him, was sentenced to life imprisonment. Oscar Ray Bolin.
So you're saying you didn't murder these women? You didn't murder Natalie Hawley?
No.
Stephanie Collins?
No.
Terry Lynn Matthews?
No. I didn't know. I'd never seen him. Never met him.
These are the words of convicted serial killer Oscar Ray Bolin. What makes them even more chilling is his persistent claims of innocence, even when the evidence against him was overwhelming, including the testimonies of 3 family members. Born on January 22, 1962, in Portland, Indiana, Bolin's early life was marred by a troubled childhood. He was subjected to physical and emotional abuse from his parents. As he grew older, his troubled upbringing manifested in a series of brushes with the law, foreshadowing the darkness that lay ahead. It was in Tampa, Florida, where Bolin's true nature would be unleashed. As a young adult, Bolin became a serial killer, targeting and brutally murdering young women. On January 25, 1986, the first murder attributed to Bolin sent shockwaves through the community. Natalie Blanche Hawley, a 25-year-old night manager at a local restaurant, was brutally stabbed to death. The brutality of the crime sent a chilling message to the residents of Tampa. A serial killer was on the loose. Months passed, and the body count continued to rise. Stephanie Collins and Terry Lynn Matthews, 2 more young women, fell victim to Bolin's insatiable bloodlust. Bolin's crimes remained unsolved for nearly 4 years, leaving the families of the victims desperate for answers and justice. The Tampa Bay area was gripped by fear as the elusive killer continued to evade capture. It wasn't until 1989 that a breakthrough came, thanks to a tip from the husband of Bolin's ex-wife. This revelation would lead to the unraveling of Bolin's dark secrets and the eventual end to his reign of terror. Witnesses, including Bolin's half-brother and cousin, came forward to testify against him, providing damning evidence that would ultimately seal his fate. Bolin was found guilty and sentenced to death for the murders of Natalie Blanche Hawley, Stephanie Collins, and Terry Lynn Matthews. Bolin, however, had maintained his innocence ever since.
The state's about to kill me, and they think they're getting justice, and I'm like, well, I'm not getting justice. They're just going to kill somebody else.
He continues by saying the state of Florida was murdering an innocent man.
I've been hearing you talk for the last 20 minutes, and you're going over the case, you're going over the evidence, and talking about it being flawed and tainted and planted. So is Florida basically killing an innocent man?
Yes.
However, Bolin stated that his execution, however, would be a release from his punishment. As the nation watched, Bolin's life came to an end on January 7, 2016, when he was executed by lethal injection. Arthur Shawcross.
Do you have any comprehension of the suffering that you've brought the families of the people that you've killed?
I don't have any remorse.
Arthur John Shawcross was born in Kittery, Maine, the first of 4 children of Arthur Roy Shawcross and Elizabeth Bessie Yerrakes Shawcross. He claimed that while growing up, his mother performed oral sex on him for several years, starting from when he was just 7. He also claimed that while in junior high school, he had sexual relations with his sister. Although his family denied these claims, Shawcross insisted it happened. Whatever the case, it was clear Shawcross was a troubled individual who was heading for a dark turn.
Do you know what evil is?
Sure.
Are you evil?
Somewhat.
On May 7th, 1972, Shawcross sexually assaulted and murdered his first known victim, 10-year-old Jack Owen Blake. In September of the same year, he murdered his second victim, 8-year-old Karen Ann Hill, after sexually assaulting her as well. He was immediately arrested the next day, but as part of a plea bargain, he spent only 14 years in prison. Shawcross was released in April 1987, and in 1988, he went on a killing spree, brutally murdering 11 people, most of them prostitutes. He was eventually arrested in 1990 and was sentenced to 250 years in prison. Even while incarcerated, Shawcross showed no form of remorse for the chilling crimes he committed. He even described how he gruesomely split one of his victims open without betraying any emotion. The interview ended with Shawcross stating that he didn't want to hurt anyone anymore.
There's always a bad man in me. You never can get rid of it. He's behind a door somewhere. I'm trying to keep him there. I don't want to hurt nobody else.
Really?
Really.
However, one thing that stood out was how Shawcross abruptly ended the interview when the case of the 2 children he murdered was brought up. He eventually died in prison on November 10th, 2008, the reason behind his evasion of the question, dead with him. As we conclude our exploration into the disturbing interviews with serial killers, we get a chilling glimpse into the mind of a serial killer, a reminder that evil can lurk behind the most ordinary facades. For more intriguing videos like this, click on the cards showing on your screen and I'll be waiting.